The KUDZUKIAN Network presents GRINDSET, inside the mind of successful entrepreneurs with your host, Cynthia Daniels and Williams Brack.
I think sometimes we overplan things and that can kind of cause a delay or setback. But I would definitely say dive in, get your name started, get your website up, get your business cards.
But you're going to learn from a lot of amazing people what kind of pitfalls that they have, the challenges, but what really made them successful, what made them keep going.
GRINDSET.
You're listening to GRINDSET, powered by the KUDZUKIAN Network. I'm your host, Cynthia Daniels, Chief Event Strategist of Cynthia Daniels and Company.
And I'm your co-host, Williams Brack, Asset-Based Lender at First Tennessee Bank.
So today we have an amazing guest. We have Gayle Rose, founder and CEO of the EVS Corporation. Rose founded EVS with a vision to leverage technology to solve business problems.
Tech company.
And one thing I think that's really cool, she was actually the first woman CEO to appear on the cover of Business Solutions magazine.
That is really cool. And listen, whether it's the Women's Foundation here in Memphis, the Memphis Symphony Orchestra, or the Memphis Grizzlies, Gayle Rose has been an important part of Memphis. And so we'll be right back with Gayle Rose of EVS Corporation after the break.
Riffin' on jazz.
I think I know a lot about jazz.
It's only what you've been doing the last 30-some years.
Yeah,
right?
I know.
A voice that can make you laugh and make you cry.
Good jazz, you don't have to worry about what they're talking about. But when they pick up those instruments, we all speak the same language. And don't you know you went in the kitchen and come back with a big bowl of salad?
Riffin' on jazz on the KUDZUKIAN Network.
Hey, this is Gayle Rose, founder and CEO of EVS Corporation, and you're listening to GRINDSET, powered by the KUDZUKIAN Network.
We're back with GRINDSET, and today's guest is Gayle Rose, founder and CEO of EVS Corporation. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I am wonderful. Well, here at GRINDSET, we just like to jump right into things because we have a lot of listeners that are excited about jumping into that entrepreneurship journey. So we definitely want to hear a little bit about you and what got you started.
Okay, well, I am mostly known in the community for philanthropy work, and I have always had a desire, kind of a burning desire, to do a for-profit business.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
just to really experience what it's like to have an idea, grow a business, and have that independence that comes with owning your own business.
Very important.
Yeah. So my journey is a little different than maybe most people's because I didn't have the original idea. I actually was approached by two young engineers.
Really?
Yeah, who had the idea.
Okay.
And what they didn't have is something that I had. So I didn't have the technical expertise.
Okay.
It's quite a technical business.
Yes.
And but I do have business expertise, which they didn't have.
It's very important.
And access to capital and
I
relationships.
thought you were going to start with capital, but
Well,
business expertise counts too.
Yeah. Access to capital and relationships.
Yes.
Okay.
So they sat down with me in about 2005 and started talking about a vision for this opportunity coming down the road with increase of network capability so you can start pushing data over a network. It was a new concept back in 2005.
Right.
And just the decrease in cost of being able to store large volumes of business data in a data center. So we looked and looked and looked and talked, and it was something really over the course of months in sitting around my kitchen table in my kitchen.
Sounds very familiar.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's either a garage or a kitchen.
I'm telling you.
I don't know. And we ended up constructing a business in concept. Really, it took a year of really, meeting every week. So the other two engineers were employed, and so it's possible, to do that. We basically did proof of concept research, building models, doing spreadsheets for a long, long time. And then we took it out. Yeah. Then we took it out, and that's where I came in. I took it to our very first sort of proof of concept client was First Tennessee Bank.
Oh, yeah. Shout out to First Tennessee.
Yeah, shout out to First Tennessee for giving some young entrepreneurs an opportunity.
Yes.
And the technology officer was sort of intrigued and said, okay, we're going to set aside some sort of non-risky data.
There you go.
Let you try it, and let's see how you do.
Okay.
Well, that was a big, big deal to us. It was enough of a contract to pull us all together. I had a foundation office, so we started working out of there rather than my kitchen table. And and the rest is just history over time.
Wow.
So how would you explain the actual so what is the actual business?
Yeah, so the business is really taking business data. We don't do individuals' data. And we contract with the business to take either all or some of their data and encrypt it and transport it over the network to what's now called the cloud, which is a data center that we built. It wasn't even called the cloud when we did it. We did it.
Offsite storage.
Offsite storage, and all the reasons we did. Actually, we would provide a copy on site for little data missteps where they needed fast recovery.
Yes.
And then we did it, to our data center. Then we had a third site that was out of the city of Memphis in case there was a earthquake or natural disaster in Memphis.
Was it in West Memphis?
No. No, it was Washington, D.C. Yeah.
Well, you shared with us that your first big opportunity and client was First Tennessee.
Yeah.
So tell us, what was that first 12 months like, landing such a huge client?
Well, honestly, what it did, and they gave us permission to actually use their name, which is always a problem, right?
That is a powerful shot of confidence.
Right, as long as we said it was proof of concept.
Yes.
Right.
So we took that, and without that, I just don't know, how we would have been able to grow. But we went to other places where I felt like I had relationships.
Okay.
And
which that's important in business.
We started to build, and we got away from the proof of concept and into real contracts that were generally about 3 years long.
Wow. Okay. So how long did it take you to actually turn a profit from...
Now that's a different story. Do you want to talk about that?
I do want to talk about that because, people think, a lot of new entrepreneurs think getting business means you're profitable.
Yeah. Right.
And that can be a huge mistake. So I just want to talk about your journey from actually getting your first contract in the first year and then actually turning a profit. So.
Yeah. Well, this is always an issue because you want to know, am I going to invest right now in personnel and in equipment and to go out and have the capability to take on a lot of business?
Yes.
Or am I going to grow by my bootstraps? Grow and let the expense or the revenue drive expense.
And each one has a different risk.
Exactly. Well, back when I was starting this, bank loans were called leverage, and leverage was very positively looked at. So you could leverage a new business like this that was it took a lot of capital to do this business because we had to buy these expensive machines and expensive networks.
Right.
And so that's the route I decided. I'm going to go with the leverage route, and we're going to leverage these contracts against a bank loan.
Well, so let me go ahead and break down leverage as the banker. The leverage is how much debt you use compared to the amount of cash you have.
Exactly.
And so 1-to-1 leverage would be $1 of cash and $1 of debt. 2-to-1 leverage would be $1 of cash to $2 of debt.
Yeah.
And so I just want to simplify that process for our listeners.
Yeah. And so that's the route we went because we needed capital. We needed money to hire other engineers to manage this business. Now, what I didn't say is that one of the advantages of going with us, EVS, is that we provided monitoring. So we could tell the client if their data was backed up successfully. And then we also gave them reports. And so we provided a service on top of the technology that they weren't getting.
Okay, that was the EVS value add.
That's it. And so, we used leverage, which, if you remember back in 2008, what happened to the economy, it crashed in the Great Recession. Capital markets, banking dried up. And all of a sudden, EVS went from this fast-growing darling to, in terms of the bank's view of it, just like a little bit risky.
Right. You're listening to GRINDSET on the KUDZUKIAN Network. So you just mentioned in 2008, your business almost looked like a risk, right? With so many things happening. How did you overcome that particular time? How did you turn it back around to a profit?
Yeah. Listen, I think it's important I think it's important to talk about this because it was probably the most difficult time of my business life for sure.
Okay.
Because we needed, in order to get a new client, we need to spend money up front.
Yes.
Right. We need to buy all the storage that they need, and that's expensive.
Right.
But now I couldn't go back to the lending source. I couldn't go back to the bank. So we were in a very, very skinny time.
Yes.
Let me put it that way.
Yes. And this happens to all entrepreneurs.
Yes.
So this is good stuff.
Yeah. So I had never been in this position before where
New challenge.
we didn't have enough cash to pay all the vendors that were wanting their money.
Okay.
And luckily, I had a CFO, Chief Financial Officer, that had been through another entrepreneurial business.
Okay.
And he had nerves of steel. And he had a list. We met every day.
Wow.
Every single day. And we met behind closed doors. We didn't let any of the employees know what was really going on behind these doors.
Okay.
And he had one principle that I learned is that preserve cash for payroll and then negotiate everything else.
Yes.
And so he
major key alert.
That was brilliant.
That was a major key alert.
Yes. And I was so stressed out because people, vendors would be calling. I was afraid it would hurt my reputation.
Right.
And it was just a stress. He just had nerves of steel. He said, "We'll pay this one. The rest of them can wait."
Well, this is where experience actually comes into play,
Yes.
right? You can teach a lot of things, but you can't teach someone how to have nerves of steel in that situation. And talk to us about hiring then, since the CFO was a good partner for you in that moment.
Right.
I suppose you hired him early on in the business or later in the stage?
A little later because of my background. I have a background in accounting and finance. And I thought, for a long time I was doing it. Not the bookkeeping, but the, planning and budgeting and kind of thinking through. But then we'd gotten to the point where it was obvious that my selling, my getting out into the community and meeting with people and talking about this business was more valuable than me sitting behind a computer doing spreadsheets. Right.
That's also another major key alert, right?
Yes.
You did a value assessment and found that your value was more in relationship building and selling than accounting.
Yeah.
Even though you could do both.
Yeah, that's true. And I really liked accounting.
Okay.
But anyway, I knew that was something I could hire.
Yeah.
And I like the fact that I found somebody that had both a little technical and entrepreneurial type experience, because just your general accountant or CFO may have come from a bigger business,
right?
And they don't have that kind of experience where in the moment of my greatest need, he stepped forward and kind of carried it through.
So since 2008, I think, let me phrase this question a different way. The business of data itself has changed tremendously in the past 2 or 3 years.
Yes.
So how has your business from the hard data storage transitioned to the cloud and doing that compete with companies like Amazon?
Absolutely. I foresaw this, and this is the next thing that I think we have to talk about as women entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs in general, is to be able to, as a CEO, see what's coming.
Yes.
I spend about 10 to 15 hours a week trying to read trade journals, trying to keep up with
major key alert.
Educated in
trying
what
to
you're doing.
keep ahead of the curve.
Okay.
And so in 2016, well, before 2016, it was about 2015, we were profitable. We were hitting on all cylinders. We were having fun. But I could see just what you asked me. I could see that the competition for a lot of the smaller businesses that I was working with was going to take that business away. There's just no way I could compete with the big Amazon or even Microsoft or some of the big.
Is it Azure for Microsoft?
Well, it's AWS.
AWS for
Amazon Web Services. Yes. And so I took a book of business, created a separate entity for the kind of business that met that profile.
Yes.
And we were able to sell that to a bigger company in California that was looking to amass those kinds of clients and do it at a rate that all of our businesses, because we weren't providing them with the kind of individualized services we were with some of our bigger clients.
Got it.
And for some of our bigger clients, one of which I cannot mention, but is a very big transportation company in Memphis, I was able to provide through that a kind of service that they still, they're not going to go to the web right away, the cloud. And so we were able to provide a service at a cost that they found attractive.
So did you sell all of that piece of business or just a majority stake and kept some kind of contracting?
We sold the majority of that type of business. And it was quite a legal maneuver to get that done. And that's the other thing I want to say is because of the kind of business that we had to do kind of complex contracts with every business.
Yes.
Okay. The smaller ones, we did a lighter contract, but
you weren't able to standardize.
Well, a lot of it was standardized to a point, and then it would get very specific about their particular business. So it was another pointer is that I didn't do a deal without an attorney. I would have caved so many times because I wanted the business so badly. And I would have sacrificed, that probably won't happen, but my attorney would stand strong. And usually...
Attorneys always in for the worst case scenario.
They do.
And usually, when we would get to a loggerheads or just it looked like I'm going to have to walk away from this, the two attorneys would talk it through and we'd resolve it. And then both of us were protected.
All right.
So... yeah.
Well, you have given us so much insight already. Just stay tuned. We'll be right back. You're listening to GRINDSET on the KUDZUKIAN Network.
GRINDSET on the KUDZUKIAN Network.
Keeping it real, right, and funky.
Tasha Downey, that other co-host, Tasha.
In this building, I want to talk about and make some mad beats.
Well, speaking about making,
I want to bring out my inner rap artist. Like I'm here for.
Oh, you talking about BEAT? I thought you talking about the beats.
Funky politics on the KUDZUKIAN Network.
KUDZUKIAN. Hey, I'm Alexandra Matlock, CEO of Contigo Creative, and you're listening to GRINDSET, powered by KUDZUKIAN Network.
We're back with GRINDSET, powered by the KUDZUKIAN Network, with our guest, Gayle Rose, founder and CEO of EVS Corporation. On the last segment, you mentioned that you started to see a little bit more competition as you guys were becoming more senior in the business. 2005, it was very new, but now we're talking 2015. You saw more competitors. How have you been able to sustain your business and still continue to grow in what you're doing?
It's a really good point. It's become a more local business and very relationship based. So we realized that was our competitive edge. That we were a small company, but we are a small company with a large company footprint.
Small but mighty.
Yeah, small but mighty. Our clients know, our businesses know. Our engineers, they have their favorite engineers.
Oh, wow.
That they want to work with. And then they also, we always provide them our senior leadership from our chief operating officer and my telephone number. And we say, if you're not getting what you need, you can call me.
Your personal
you can call
number.
me at 2 a.m. We're 24/7.
Yes, service. You can't beat that.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that trust in this particular business, where it's someone needs their data and they need it now.
Yes.
They want to know that they can call someone and not get an answer machine.
Now, since local relationships is your kind of competitive advantage, does this business scale outside of Tennessee and nationwide, or do you grow based on the amount of data that's continuing to be collected today?
Yeah, I think it did. It did have a national footprint, and we were able to sell nationally. Mm-hmm. And that's primarily what we spun off in 2016.
Okay.
Locally, we are growing more in the governmental area in contracts.
A lot of data, yes.
And we are also, we're into succession planning. So I'm working with, a couple of our engineers who have shown real interest in the business.
Okay.
And my hope is within the next 3 to 5 years that they can buy me out and I will go on a cruise somewhere.
I met a guy who he retired on a cruise ship. He invested 2-3 years into the kind of rewards program. Now he travels the world on cruise ships for free.
All right.
That's neither here nor there, though.
Right.
So you talked about the importance of relationships being your competitive advantage. But how does a new entrepreneur start in business with no relationships?
Well, I guess EVS is a good example.
Okay.
Right? Because these two young engineers, I happen to know the one of them, and they had the guts to call me and want to meet.
Really?
Yeah, and so that's what unfolded was and I think they were honest about what they didn't have, and what they needed, and what they were willing to give up in terms of ownership and equity and everything, and how we shared all that.
Yes.
Okay. So I think too, and I mentioned this, that I do a lot of public speaking.
Yes.
Okay.
And at the end, I have a lot of young people that come up and say, I'd love to meet you. I'd love to talk to you about your success. I hand out all these cards, and my assistant gets really nervous. Saying, oh my gosh.
I can only imagine.
But you know what? People don't call. People don't follow up.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think there's enough interest in Memphis, Tennessee for experienced business people who have run companies to help young people, that women, people of color, to really advance. And I think that's an asset of the community that is underutilized.
Oh, yeah, most definitely.
But you have to have the courage to approach.
You really do.
You do.
You have to, get your business plan together, or your idea, have it well articulated, and say, I'm looking for some help.
Major key alert.
That's right. And I have another question, obviously, for those listeners who are thinking about entrepreneurship, leaving that corporate 9-to-5. Can you tell us maybe an expensive mistake that you made, something that they can avoid as they're starting their business in the future?
There's this idea that you should slow to hire, quick to fire, right?
I've heard that many times.
Yeah.
It's a great saying.
And I have such a heart for people.
Do you?
I do. I think about their situation, and so that was one of my weaknesses, I would say, is that when there's someone wasn't performing, and you've given them the right kind of guidance and goals and so forth, you need to go ahead and cut that and look for something else. I think the other thing that really was sort of out of my control, but the whole leverage versus growing by your expenses, letting revenue
into the company
drive your business growth. It's a safer, longer trail.
Slower.
But we became very disciplined after that experience of almost losing it.
So have you reintroduced leverage back into your business, or are you growing, reinvesting cash flow?
Yeah, we're just reinvesting cash at this point, which is fun.
Yeah.
That's when you said, Cynthia, that you're having a lot of fun. And for the first, say 3 to 4 years, not knowing that economy dip was coming, I wouldn't have classified what we were doing as fun. It was fun when we got a contract. We all celebrated. We went out to dinner. But wow, it was pressure. But boy, once you get there, it's fun.
And I tell you, speaking of 2008, that's how I ended up in Memphis, Tennessee. So in Atlanta, I ended up getting laid off and could not find anything for a year with 2 degrees. So I packed up my car, moved to Memphis, got a job right away. So I think 2008 hit a lot of people a lot of different ways.
Wow.
You know, whatever the criticisms are of Memphis, there's tremendous opportunity
Absolutely.
here for the right people. If you look in the right places and if you want it bad enough, there's definitely opportunities here.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I had to connect to this mission of my business and get passionate.
Yeah.
And people can feel that passion. Now,
you have to work your way up to passion?
Well, at first I was like, how do you get passionate about data?
It was so new, right?
But then I started thinking about...
There's some data files out there, I can tell you.
I was thinking about, how we literally would save a business from because without its data, it can't really run today.
Right.
And then I was thinking about all the families that work for these businesses, and we would oftentimes we'd save them.
Yes.
So that's a pretty cool mission.
So speaking of fun, and I don't know if it's relevant or not, but how you've done a lot of philanthropy.
Yeah.
And so how has your philanthropy changed before starting a business? And how does it look today after having a business and you're having fun and it's thriving?
Well, some of my bigger projects were done before the business. I think during the really intense part and the constant need to grow the business, there's a lot of sacrifice. I didn't get as involved in community projects. And then I think you want to talk about the focus. I think being an entrepreneur, you really need to focus on the business.
Yes.
And oftentimes I'll use the word seduced into participating in some really interesting community things. That is probably more of my...
Interesting is the most loaded word.
Yeah. Most of, it's really where I want to be, and I just can't avoid it.
Okay.
And so, but the business will take a hit the more you don't pay attention to it.
Yes.
So there's always that balance because participating in the community builds more relationships, right?
Absolutely.
And so you got to balance that.
All right, so you're listening to GRINDSET on the KUDZUKIAN Network. Another thing I'd like to talk about, and it's almost like a role reversal this time around. Usually business owners look for a mentor, but it seems like your business partners came in and you were the person that kind of taught them about business. Can you just give our listeners some good advice about seeking out a mentor when they're starting a business?
Yeah. And I think, it's intimidating to think about a mentor.
Okay.
I think sometimes, and I had this experience, and I was thinking about this, where I needed mentoring in various areas.
Oh, okay.
I needed a mentor in how to build a sales team.
Okay.
I need a mentor in how to understand this technology.
Okay.
Right. So I started to look for other businesses like mine in other markets that were similar and form that kind of relationship and get a mentoring that way.
Okay.
And so I think sometimes we think that I have to find a single mentor.
Right,
but
one-stop shop.
Yeah, my lawyer was a mentor, my accountant was a mentor. Some of the areas where I needed strengthening. And then, there is occasionally one person that can serve that role, but I think it's easier to think of, many. Right.
Business is so dynamic. You almost need multiple people.
Yeah, I like that perspective. And tell us what's maybe the best piece of advice you've ever gotten from one of your mentors.
I think it's just to, let me think about that, to slow down and to think things through.
Okay.
And not be ready, to sign on the dotted line, and be willing to walk away sometimes.
Interesting.
Major key, like, be willing to walk away. Yeah.
Okay. That's great advice.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how many mentees do you have now?
Well, I think, I'm getting to the point in my career where I'm I wouldn't say I know everything, but I don't. I for sure don't. But that's what I'm seeing my role more and more, both in the community, in my philanthropy. I'm interested in all the youthful energy that's coming into Memphis.
And there's a lot of it.
And they need support. They need people that have walked before them.
Right.
And so you do get to an age where you start thinking, my greatest service to the community, to business, and to the community organizations is to share and to support and be the wind beneath the wings of someone that's really striving.
Incredible. If you didn't see him, you can't see him. He's over here flapping his wings.
Okay, that was corny.
So you've been involved in a lot of philanthropy, foundations, so forth and so on. How has running nonprofits and foundations been different from running a private business?
Well, they're both very similar, actually.
Really? Tell us
how.
how.
Well, nonprofits demand capital.
Yes.
Okay. You have to go ask for it.
Okay.
And people, you're sort of dependent on, meeting your mission with their passion.
Yes.
Okay.
And the big difference is that, nonprofit doesn't quite have that driving need to grow every month in or month out, or you're out of business.
Yeah.
Okay.
You could have someone that is just devoted to your cause and will kind of keep you going, even though you might not be as disciplined as a for-profit, because it's just bottom line, right? You're either paying the bills or you're not.
There you go.
And I know nonprofits are that way, but I kind of equate marketing and sales in a nonprofit to the same discipline as a for-profit. And maybe, though, I think where businesses are oftentimes creating a widget or an object to sell.
Yes.
And it's not quite the heart that a nonprofit might be selling in the community. But they're, if you apply the same discipline, you're going to be successful in nonprofits.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why a lot of nonprofits like to hire business people as their CEOs, because the fundamentals are very, very similar. And so having all this nonprofit plus business, how do you even find balance in life? Well, because something, in my opinion, something has to suffer, right? If you're doing business, you're doing community, then personal, right?
Right.
And so how do you balance just all these things?
I don't think I was very good at that in the height of it.
And that's
honestly,
an honest answer.
Yeah. I really
appreciate the
wasn't.
honesty.
I could tell you that, you should run and you should go to the gym and you should eat this
please
way.
Don't tell me that.
I didn't eat the pizza when I came in because I'm learning now. And
making better choices.
Making myself a priority.
Yeah.
It's just hard when you're running everything. Mm-hmm. It's really hard to balance.
Well, I'd love to know, before we get out of here, kind of what's next for EVS Corporation. Our listeners would love to know that.
And Gayle Rose.
Yeah.
And Gayle. There we go.
Well, as I said, we're doing succession planning. It's my hope that in the next 3 to 5 years that maybe my couple of my employees will buy me out and continue the mission.
Right.
So that I can be more available to do the kinds of things that I've done, only maybe in a different way. I don't think I need to be the drum major out in front of the band as much as I was, and that I could be behind the band and kind of helping herd things forward. That's kind of what I'm feeling.
That's amazing. Gayle Rose, thank you so much for coming to GRINDSET and sharing. We have a lot of major keys from you, and we hope that you come back to the show again.
Oh, I'd love to. Thank you so much for having me.
You're listening to GRINDSET, powered by the KUDZUKIAN Network. We'll be right back after the break.
R&R on Sports is proud to be on Sirius XM.
So what's R&R stand for?
Real talk and relevant sports issues.
It's racial and relative. We're brothers from the South. We can relate.
R&R on Sports on the KUDZUKIAN Network.
Welcome back to GRINDSET on the KUDZUKIAN Network. We just finished interviewing Gayle Rose of EVS Corporation. And as with any kind of mature business owner, they always just have wealth of knowledge and experience to drop on us. And so I had some major keys that I pulled from it. In order to start a business and go into entrepreneurship, you need either one of four things or all four things. It's going to be an idea, access to capital, business expertise, and relationships. Of those, the only ones you can't really buy are relationships. Everything else you can find, from an idea to access to capital to business expertise. The other one, if you're in business and you just so happen to hire some employees with that cash, one of the things you want to do is reserve cash for payroll and negotiate everything else. The other one is read and stay current on the industry and business you say you're in. Be aware of the things that's coming and have vision enough to change your business to ride the wave instead of getting swallowed under. And the last one is when you're negotiating deals and contracts, I know you're hungry for business. I know you want to do the deal, but always be willing to walk away.
So I was very inspired by Gayle Rose today, and I found a quote that is perfect. It says, "I was smart enough to go through any door that opened," by Joan Rivers. And in listening to her story, she was approached by two engineers in a field that she had no expertise in.
Yeah.
And she saw the opportunity. They met at her kitchen table for an entire year, and look at the successful business she has. So for the listeners out there, be willing to try different things and walk through doors that are open.
And make sure you have your idea and or your request for money or resources and relationships ready when you get on the other side of that door. And also make sure to check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, KUDZUKIAN.com, or your favorite podcast provider. You've been listening to GRINDSET on the KUDZUKIAN Network. See you next episode.
GRINDSET, executive producer, Epicenter. Recorded at KUDZUKIAN Studios. GRINDSET is directed, produced, recorded, and distributed by KUDZUKIAN.